Retro.
Hello there, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
Happy Monday to one and all. Sorry to break the news. It's Monday if you're waking up to this, but we are starting this week with a discussion of Part 3 of LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past, and that's fun and happy, so there's some good news. But before we dive into that, Jay, you want to remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Yes, and I see what you did there. Break into Monday. Very good. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right. The dish is aligned. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down, and we're now broadcasting to the galaxy. And that was a very good James Arnold Taylor inflection you did there with the Podcast Stardust.
Yeah.
So at any rate, this is our discussion of Part 3 of Pieces of the Past. And if you haven't caught Parts 1 and Part 2, definitely go back and check those out. Just by way of recap, we have the previous episode featured Dev and Sig figuring out how to get out of the Force hold so they could get back to this rebuilt galaxy and confront Solitus. And of course, they're bringing Brickhead Ahsoka with them. And Solitus has sent a whole bunch of other people from this galaxy into the Force hold, and things are getting serious. So anyway, here we begin on Dathomir with everyone emerging from the portal, that being Brickhead's Ahsoka, Servo, Dev, and Sig. Ahsoka can't get up and needs Servo's help. And she just she doesn't threaten him, but she gives him a very harsh, don't tell anyone about this. And I don't know. I paused it when that happened because I had a pretty good laugh out of it. But that was just kind of fun take, especially if we kind of see her flipping around with those lightsabers so much in the previous episode. She's fallen and she can't get up here.
Right. A little bit top heavy on that Brickhead's Ahsoka for sure. I have to say, I kind of like the Dig name. That's a good dyad name for Dev and Sig. There you go.
Yeah, I hadn't intended it, but now you mention it. That's
there you go.
That's a possibility. Okay, but then Dev and Sig kind of find themselves in a dream, and this is very much Force dyad type stuff, right? In that they are aboard the Oblivion Runner, and Solitus does one of those Emperor chair spin things to turn around to confront them, and he says he's been watching them, and then another Lego pun where Dev responds to some of his taunting by saying, I guess we're just built differently.
Yeah.
And then Solitus is actively trying to seduce Dev to the dark side. And he talks to him in his mind. He says, you're like a teacher. He has seen his dreams. And this is very much like what the Emperor was doing in Rise of Skywalker with Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren. And then Sig tries to reason with Solitus. And again, Solitus just keeps going on about how the fact that he knows power beyond their wildest dreams. So again, Palpatine going through temptation with knowledge, that whole callback. And then Solitus brags about how he's going to collapse the entire galaxy into his rift, and they wake up. So I really dig this. I mean, it's not ring theory because it's not part of the movie lineage, but you can see where they're getting their inspiration from here.
Oh, for sure.
And this is very much a Star Wars thing. And I think they pulled it off pretty well. But what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. And the whole you lack a teacher thing, too. I mean, Kylo Ren said that to Rey, too. You need a teacher. So there's always that, kind of poetry, it rhymes kind of thing with Star Wars. And so, but I like the dream sequence here because it's very much, like you said, in line with a lot of the different things that we've seen in Star Wars. So it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And then, again, it's also the, Palpatine tempting Anakin, constantly about,
Right.
I know you want power and you're craving it and this, that, and the other. And he just preys on that and preys on and preys on that, Solitus does with Dev here, and so they're obviously building up to something where Dev has to make a choice, and we'll get into that in just a bit. But of course, they wake up on Dathomir, and they're now forming this team. And Dev keeps saying things like he doesn't want to work with them. He wants to dominate the galaxy, but he can't dominate the galaxy if there is no galaxy. So it's kind of one of those the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of
Right.
situation. And Sig is this is such a trope, the over enthusiastic good guy that wants to turn the bad guy back over to the good. We've seen this time and again in places. And he's like, oh, is there more than that? And so he's really leaning into it. But then they build a ship. It starts off as a TIE interceptor, then an X-wing bomber mashup, and then a snow speeder, and they finally settle on the Force burner.
It's
And
so cool.
we'd seen this teased in the trailers and some of the other stuff that they were putting out there prior to the series. And at the time, I thought it was just going to be, a hot rod version of a snow speeder with flames on it, but it's a little bit more than that, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, is this something that's going to potentially be marketed? What do you think?
It, yeah, it's
Nice.
already available. You can buy it on the Lego website for $55. So
That's super cool. There's
yeah,
another ship that I definitely like out of all of them when we get to it and we start talking about it, I would actually want to purchase.
okay,
So,
cool.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but the Force Burner set comes with Dev, Sig, the Force Burner, Solitus, and his linked purple lightsabers, an STAP, which we saw Solidus use in the last episode, and
Yeah.
then the little speeder that Dev rides later in this
Oh, that's
episode. So
cool. What a
yeah,
fun little set.
yeah, it's not a big set. It's only 349 pieces, but the price gets jacked up for the licensing. So
Mhm. I can
that's the
see that.
unfortunate thing about Lego Star Wars is you
Yeah,
do get those sets at a premium. So
it's true.
yeah. Okay. Well, so they make that, and then they are on their way, and they're going to track down Bob and Yessie based on the tracker that Servo put on them. It's Sig's last line is like, with any luck, they've already come up with a brilliant plan, and then we see Bob say, "Well, I'm all out of brilliant
That was
plans."
so perfect.
Yeah.
So perfect. It's one thing that this Lego Star Wars does is they really nail the humor, because we've
Hmm.
said time and time again that sometimes when you miss the mark, it just is like, "Ooh, cringy," and they just do such a good job with it throughout.
Right.
I'm always so impressed.
Well, they don't. They don't. I don't want to say. I'm not saying they're going for low hanging fruit, but they also don't get too complicated with the
Mhm,
humor here. They go for the
mhm,
puns. They go for the quick jokes and stuff like that, and just let them land, as opposed to really trying to set up something elaborate that's riskier when it comes to the
mhm,
comedy here. And so I think it works for kids. It works for adults. I mean, I'm getting some good laughs out of this,
mhm.
but yeah. So they find themselves in this nebula, and they get attacked by Queen Amidala's pirates, amongst which is Cassian Andor flying an Arc 170. They eventually get knocked out by an ion cannon on that ship. I'm wondering how long this season, Pieces of the Past, was in production compared to the first season, because it feels like the first season, and I could be wrong, and I just may not be thinking about this hard enough, was not, it didn't have as many contemporary Star Wars references in it. It
Mhm,
really was dwelling on things that were the primary films and beyond. Whereas this season, and we've been talking about it, we had the Landalorian. We've now got Cassian Andor. Now, granted, he was in Rogue One, but I'm pretty sure the poll is supposed to be from Andor here.
mhm.
We got K2SO. Uh, we've seen Ahsoka, and they've used the music from Ahsoka. Uh, and like I said, we're just getting a lot more contemporary type of references here. So I'm wondering if this just got greenlit and produced faster this time around. I mean, I don't know that it makes a difference, but that's just one of the things I noticed, is that they seem to be taking advantage of what's in like the current Star Wars zeitgeist.
Yes, yes, and they've done a really good job of being very comprehensive with
Hmm.
all of it too, which is kind of awesome. Not kind
Yeah.
of, it is.
I love seeing the Arc 170 fighter that Cassian was flying.
Mhm.
I would love to have known who was in it with him, because that's like a 3-pilot craft. You know, you got your
Oh,
primary
yeah.
pilot and then the 2 gunners that's sitting there, but they didn't really show us that.
That's
Uh,
true.
but when we get to Naboo, this is a pirate haven. This is a pirate headquarters led by the pirate queen Amidala. And
Love this.
yeah, well, one, it's a Lego piece, but it's such a great look. The mashup of the pirate garb and Amidala's like red dress from the Phantom Menace there.
Mhm.
Brilliant. I just
Yes.
like, I thought that was such a good idea. It would I want to see, you could do this, Jay, or any one of your cosplayer friends, someone take the Lego inspiration and make that real dress and put it
Yes.
out there at a con somewhere.
Mhm. Oh, I would love to do that, quite honestly, because I already have the headpiece and I already have a lot of that because I did the red dress long time ago. It's been a very long time, but I could rework that. But I paused this because of course you know me, I'm the big costume geek and I had to see how she was wearing, instead of having the lighted orbs, around the bottom, like they
Mhm.
formed a bandolier and like she had part of her sleeves were kind of ripped, and I just thought it was brilliant. They did such a great job.
Yeah, I agree. I watched this twice. The first time was just straight through, and the second time was to take notes. And I too paused it to get a good look at that costume. I was like, this was really clever. This is so much of the mashup. We're counting on them, for these Lego series, we're counting on them just to like mash vehicles and stuff together. But now they're mashing looks here
Mhm.
and just, making things topsy turvy is what they traditionally do. So this was a neat stuff. I also loved Vader getting nervous about
Yes.
this and the little story he tells about how, he met her a long time ago. They fell in love. She got a taste for the pirate life, and then the pirate life was not for me. Yo ho yo ho, straight out of Disney. And
Uh-huh.
then and then he's on the all white, and then she makes some snide comment about his silly looking helmet showing up there, and another classic reference there that I had the moral high ground, she had the actual high
High
ground.
ground.
So, yeah, and that's been fun with this series, is that sometimes they just straight up use the classic lines from the movies, and then others they put a twist on them to make them work in this galaxy.
Yes, yes, and I thought it was a great touch that the everything that they used for the skiff was all the Naboo royal crust
Hmm.
and, all of the different things that were just such great attention to detail, and it was so great having Catherine Tabor back to do the voice too
Yeah,
of
it was a very
Amidala.
gilded sail barge there.
Yes, loved it.
Yeah, with all the gold, like you're saying, and
Uh-huh.
and not only that, they put like what do you call it? The characters you put under the bow of a pirate ship and stuff, and then they had the cannons come out, like
Mhm.
you raise the hatches for that. So they really leaned into Jabba's sail barge, matched it up with the Naboo gold and splendor, and then added the pirate elements in there. So that needs to be a Lego set at some
That's the
point.
one that I would buy. This is the one I
Really?
was alluding to. Yes, this is
Yeah.
the I just think it is so cool because it's a great mashup, and there's so many awesome details as you
Mhm.
see, even from, like, some of the chains, from the masts, and just yeah, a lot of great attention to detail in there.
Yeah, and before they even get on the sail barge, we get 3PO back. And when we saw
Yes.
him in season 1, he was a bounty hunter, but now he's part of Amidala's pirate crew. And he's met what he describes as like the most delightful buccaneer droid here, and that's R2D2, who shows up with one peg leg, an eye patch, and a Kowakian monkey lizard perching on his shoulder, so on his
So
dome, so to
great,
speak. There,
and he
I was
zaps
getting
it.
yeah, I was getting BT1 vibes from Dr. Aphra there, that little murder mech that she runs around with in Triple
Oh, good
Zero there.
call, yeah.
Because at one point, when she decides they're going to take him out to and throw them in the pit, and we'll get to the pit in just a second. He busts out like 12 different weapons, and like half a dozen henchmen all come springing out.
Yes.
And Phasma,
So good.
Phasma's part of the crew too. She was always lurking around in the background in these scenes.
Now I did not catch her. Oh my gosh. How
Yeah,
did I miss her?
yeah, you see her to the left of Amidala in a couple scenes. when they're like in the throne room, and then later she's flying one of the ships when they attack the Oblivion Runner.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, I totally missed that. I don't know how. I'm gonna have to definitely go back and watch that again.
mhm. So they decide they're going to throw Vader, Yessi, and Bob in a pit, and not Luke and Leia because for some reason Amidala likes them. She's got a feeling about them. And when they get to the pit, Bob is like, "No, not the Sarlacc pit." And 3PO's like, "Oh goodness, no! This is far more dangerous. It's the Snoke pit."
Love this.
Okay, but are they making jokes out of the sequel trilogy? It almost feels like they're making fun of the sequel trilogy here as opposed to laughing with the sequel trilogy here. Because they kind of get around to talking about, they found these discarded clones of Snoke and they didn't know what to do with them, so they threw them in a pit. But who's Snoke? It doesn't even really matter.
I had to laugh at that. I can
Yeah.
see where you're going. I often, with everything with the sequel trilogy, I think it's kind of they have to laugh at themselves kind of thing because they know that there's a lot of the fan base that goes that way anyway. So it's like either you defend it and, try to play it off as darker humor or you go with it and just celebrate it. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of I don't know if it's a little bit in between, but I loved it. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I get that part of the twist on this was, but who is Snoke?
Right.
How much time did we spend trying to figure out who Snoke was between The Force Awakens and The Last
Yeah.
Jedi? And so you could look at it as being a reference to all of that. And then ultimately, they're right. It didn't really matter. Snoke
Mhm.
gets killed in The Last Jedi, and we never had to worry about him again. And we barely saw or heard anything about him. We get to The Rise of Skywalker, there's various deformed clones and vats on Exegol. And Palpatine says, "I made Snoke." That's it. That's all we
Right.
get about that.
Right.
And so it really is this dropped thread. And I don't want to turn this into a whole sequel trilogy discussion, but and so yeah, it was kind of a missed opportunity there. They just kind of wasted all of that, and so be it. But yeah, I don't know. It just was the first time I was like, oh, okay, funny, haha. But then the second time I was like, wait a second, what are we doing? What are we saying here? So
Mhm.
yeah, but at any
I guess
rate,
I just saw it as just poking fun. It's on a different level than, because I always go back to Robot Chicken, of course, because I'm such a huge fan of that. And that is
mhm,
the one comedy series I think that pokes the most fun
mhm,
in this type of way. So I guess maybe that's where my head is going. But I
yeah.
thought it was really clever, the whole Snoke pit thing.
Yeah. Well, these next two moments are like my favorite, funniest moments of the whole thing. And that is Bob is standing there on the plank, getting ready to jump into this Snoke pit. And he says, "I sense something, a presence I have not felt, I guess, since that other time I felt it." It's just,
That was great.
making fun of the Darth Vader line from A New Hope. And
Uh-huh.
then they do the whole nodding thing, from
Oh my
Return of the
gosh.
Jedi, where you get the
Yes.
bump, where Luke is nodding and Lando's nodding and and then Luke salutes, and then they're just kind of
And
nodding, and all of a sudden,
everyone's nodding.
yeah, even the Snokes,
Yeah, yes.
and then Luke is like, "Wait a minute, why is he nodding at me? Am I supposed to do something?" But again, those were some really good callbacks and some good humor for
Mhm.
this episode. And then yeah, Sig and Dev show up and save the day. Dev gets a pretty cool little action scene there. And they convince Amidala to help them against Solitus because, and that's where I first noted that Phasma's in the background, right there when after the Snoke pit scene. Um, but
Okay.
uh, but Dev goes on about how he almost admires Solitus's audacity. He's going to destroy the whole galaxy, and then we see 3PO and R2D2 torturing Servo, Return of the
Yeah,
Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's
right?
palace style. There, and this is where Amidala realizes Luke and Leia are his children, are her children. There. I mean, you get 23 minutes and then 3 or 4 minutes of credits right after that. So they really sped up that reunion, but it is what it
Yeah, they
is.
did.
Yeah.
Leia and Amidala get a little bit more time together.
Yeah, they bond very quickly, and Luke
They
is
do.
totally impressed with his mom that he never knew up until this moment. So, anyway, they they're going to take out Solidus, but they have to make some ships. So Sig creates BB wings.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Love
I was
it.
gonna say this is such a no-brainer, and it's like it wouldn't, but it was not even anything I was thinking about with a potential mashup until they did it. But yeah, combining BB-8 with the BB with a B wing to make the
Mhm.
BB wings, and then they when they go up to fight Solidus, they all do the little check-in. It says BB-8, BB-5 standing by, BB-8 standing by, and
And they're all
um,
different colors, and that's so
yeah,
cool.
and then the little BB-8 head rolls around the body of the ship just like it would on BB-8, the droid. So,
That's another
uh,
one I think would be a great Lego set to market.
yeah, I need to check. Did they even make that? Let's see. BB wing Lego. No, that is currently not a set. All right, but we'll have to keep our eyes out for that.
There you
I feel like
go.
there's so much potential, and they're just not taking advantage
Right?
of it
Yeah.
with this. Because the Dark Falcon was an absolute no-brainer from season one, but they
Mhm.
just don't seem to be trying to capitalize on it as much this time around.
Yeah, yeah, they should because I feel
Yeah,
like there's definitely a market out there for it.
indeed, indeed. So Dev gets put off by Bob, for the upteenth time, going on about how they can't trust a Sith, that he's going to betray them, and he won't train him and the like. And so Dev goes marching off. He runs into Ciro, who is sulking because he can't stop thinking about Viper, the little probe droid that he met in the Force Hold, and then he shows Dev a holo of him and Sig when Sig was trying to do some sort of jump off of a rock onto some nerfs
Mhm.
uh, back in their old galaxy, and kind of melts Dev's ice cold heart a little bit there.
Yeah, and he even calls Sig Siggy at one point too. He's like,
And
"Wait,
then
did you
catches
just call me
himself.
Siggy?" Nope,
Yeah,
nope, I didn't.
that's not what I meant. But uh,
Yep.
but then the time has come to go fight off Solidus, and we see a number of U-wings launch. We see an A-wing Jedi Starfighter mashup and a Blockade Runner Lambda shuttle mashup. There's a couple of others there, but they went by so fast I wasn't able to really catch them.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, there was a
and
bunch.
and anytime I'd pause it, they were just a blur.
Mhm.
So I did notice that Ahsoka has a stylized version of the Jedi shuttle that we get to see that she had in the Ahsoka series there. But it's
Mhm.
much smaller, and it's not the proportion you would expect for that. But she flies around in that. We finally get the Darth Jar Jar return.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's obvious who it is. They're on Naboo, and then all of a sudden you see the spider legs show up in the foreground, and then and you get a shadow, and then it gets aboard the Falcon, and then it releases all the Sith there. But uh, I just kind of love the We's gonna do terrible things to you,
Yes.
terrible things. So Ahmed Best getting to do what he was talking about back at Star Wars Celebration in Japan.
Very
Finally,
cool.
here.
I love the Darth Jar Jar with the spider legs.
hmm
So
hmm
cool. Didn't get
Yeah.
enough screen time though.
No, he's got an entire episode to go, but that's just kind of it. Given the people that were
Yeah.
promoting this at Celebration, I was expecting way more of Ahsoka than what we've had
Mhm.
so far. And
Mhm.
she had a much bigger role in the last episode than she did this one. She had like 3 lines in this episode, and I was expecting way more out of Darth Jar Jar as well. But
Yes.
they didn't bother to introduce him until the last half of the third episode.
Right.
So, creative choice. And then, of course, Jar Jar lets all the Sith free that were aboard the Dark Falcon, and then they turn on Yessi and sabotage the entire plan to stop the Oblivion Runner, which leads to Dev and Sig deciding that they have to infiltrate this thing with Jedi Bob. We get a really cool Revenge of the Sith style boarding when they go through the hole, and Bob jumps out of the cockpit and immediately starts
Yes.
taking it to the battle droids there. The inspiration for that one is pretty clear. And then when they go to confront Solidus, he builds some sort of a spinning barrier for the Force and Lego pieces, and he picks up on his attempt to turn Dev to the dark side. Consensus of how he's hurt, alone, and angry, and he starts to get through to Dev, and he even points out that the Jedi claim to believe in redemption, but when you asked for it, Jedi Bob denied you. And so as this thing comes to a head, Dev makes the decision to partner up with Solitus. What do you make of all that?
I was actually surprised. I didn't think he would do it, especially
Mhm.
because the little hints that we had been getting all along, calling Sig Siggy and having those, you know, being able to see the holo from, like you said, bringing warm feelings to his heart, feeling all warm and fuzzy. And he was sitting there saying, I won't betray you, and I think he kind of actually believed that until Jedi Bob was like, no, you're not trainable. I don't want to train you. We're never going to train you. Da, 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 da. And then, for Solidus to say you asked for redemption and they turned you down. I mean, I think he pointed that out correctly, and it's very similar to what Palpatine did with Anakin.
Yes. I guess here's my other question I'm really asking. Do you think that Dev has really betrayed them, or is he setting up Solidus?
Oh, wow. I mean, if he is, this is a very like almost final way to do it. I mean, by gobbling up everything in the universe and unmaking everything. I mean, that's a pretty big gamble.
Yeah, I guess what led me to ask this question is that, Sig is hanging on to a beam as he's getting sucked out of the ship. And then when Dev makes up his mind to betray everybody, he pulls Bob off of Solidus, and then he uses the Force to seal that part of the wall behind Sig and saves
Mm,
him. And Solidus asks him, why did you save him? And he basically says that, I want him to suffer as I have. And I don't buy that. I don't
I
think.
know. I tried not to. I was like, "Ah, I can't believe he just said that." But I
Yeah.
thought, am I missing something, or is he really that evil? Because I want to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one or two things are going to happen. I think this is going one or two ways where either, yes, this was a legitimate betrayal, but then Sig is going to get through to him by the end of the fourth part, or this was, he saw, we can't beat Solidus here. And so I'm going to have to basically get in good with him and then bide my time to betray him and win this whole thing back, because as he said, it's his destiny to rule this galaxy, but that doesn't work if there's no galaxy to rule
Right.
on this, and that's what Dev really craves. uh
That's true. Yep.
so anyways, that's my take, and haven't watched ahead, so we'll find out next week when we get around to discussing part 4 how that goes.
Yeah, there may be some listeners that are like, "Oh, come on, guys, you should know this." But we are taking it one episode at a time.
We've been very disciplined about
We
this,
have definitely.
so and I'm looking forward to watching part 4 tomorrow now that I've got this
Yeah.
done. So all right. Any other final thoughts on this before we wrap up?
I really appreciate a lot of the clever things that we've gotten to see in this. Like you were pointing out earlier, some of the mashups and even some of the clothing, wardrobe, quote unquote, if Legos can have a wardrobe
Yeah.
choices, and just the way that they've utilized a lot of the callbacks of different lines and things. It feels like home, when you're watching this, but in a whole new way. And I'm really enjoying this series.
Yeah, me too. And we started off our discussion of part 1 just kind of going over the fact that this is Lego Star Wars. You can't take it too seriously. You have to enjoy it for what it is. Embrace the imagination, embrace the free play aspect of it. But having said that, I really think the world building that they do and
Mhm.
the story that they're telling here with the Force hold. We've leaned into some of the inspirations that they've drawn from. We are citing some of the Marvel references, and and this fits in with things like World Between Worlds. With when you're,
Yeah.
the Force hold is not the same thing, but it's a comparable type of an idea. And if you took all of this out of the Lego world and remove some of the humor elements, you could really turn this into a really fun, like Star Wars alternative galaxy type of a story there.
Yes. Yes,
So
100%.
yeah. So anyway, it's Lego, and I'm not going to discount it for that. But it strikes me as something that this is punching above its weight for the storytelling that they're doing here.
Mhm. Mhm, totally agree. And we did get to hear Ahsoka say, Sky Guy. So that was
Yep.
cool too.
Yep. Indeed. Yeah, and Luke got to say, "I have a really good feeling about this." So
Yeah.
let's talk about turning things on their head. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, that'll do it for this discussion of Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past, Part 3. It's such a mouthful, but I'm going to say all of it. And I hope you all enjoyed our discussion of this episode. And if you want to make sure you don't miss our discussion of Part 4, hit the subscribe button on your podcatcher if you haven't done so already. And once you've done that, we'd really appreciate your ratings and reviews. I've been noticing on some various podcatchers that we've been picking up some ratings, and a lot of you have been very generous with your 5 stars, and that is much, much appreciated. And I'd like to also remind you that you can find the entire back catalog, the previous 950 episodes, over on retrozap.com, as well as all the other great shows that are on the RetroZap Podcast Network. And Jay, you're up. You want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are and the other places we have set up shop on the internet.
Yes, and I'd just like to reiterate what you just said about thanking everybody for the support because we've definitely continued to grow and it's because of all of you. So if you would be so kind as to share out on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust and, share our page with your friends, that would be amazing. And let us know what you think of these episodes as well. And we also have all of our Pinterest boards that you can check out and our 2 YouTube outlets. So we are on YouTube and YouTube Music. And you can also find us on a lot of other places as well, including Audible and Spotify. And if you'd like to pick up something to show your love of Podcast Stardust out in the galaxy, you can head over to TeePublic, where we do have 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of things from apparel to home goods and even things like coffee mugs. And you can even pick up things like laptop covers. I was over there looking around and it's like, wow, you can get so many different things. So once again, the link to our TeePublic store is in our show notes.
Okay, upcoming on the show on Wednesday, we are doing our first Ask Me Anything Star Wars episode in quite a while. It's been several months since we've done one of those, so make sure you check that out. We'll have some fun time. We'll have a fun time talking about various Star Wars topics and questions there. And then on Friday, we're wrapping up the week with the next edition of Star Wars News. So thanks for listening to episode 951 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.